that worked out really well. The music died off just as I'm clicking buttons. I like it sometimes when I love it when a plan comes together. 2 secs. Let's just let some things settle down. Just waiting for the encoding to calm itself down. What else do I need? I need that. There we go. Let's hit the button. We also need... Hey, there we go. We need Champions Hockey League up. Oh dear. And we also need the Elite League website up. It's amazing what you forget that you've left on the tabs on your phone, like the recipe for red pepper pasta sauce. Fun times. Going well in Switzerland then, by the look of it. Oh dear. Hello, those of you who are early. If you're watching on catch up, we haven't done it for a while. So if you're watching this on catch up, and I know a lot of you do, the magic word to put in the comments to tell me that you've been watching on catch up, that you've been paying attention, that you were here at the beginning. The magic word this time out is crayon. I'm only saying it just because there's a big load of crayons over there. I don't know why really. I don't know why we still have those, but either way they're here. Let's get some more people in. Good to see the warm-up question being answered. For me, the worst place is the floor of Toronto Pearson International Airport when back in 2013, when my wife and I's flight got cancelled due to snow and de-icing equipment breaking at Toronto. We actually ended up making a fort in airport, in departures in Toronto Airport, because there was a gap between a wall and like sort of like a news agent kiosk kind of thing. So we got clothes out to sort of sleep on the floor and use things as blankets, and used our suitcases and our bags to kind of build a wall around us so that we couldn't be seen. But still the worst night of sleep. Eventually when we got home, it was followed by the best nap I've ever had in my life. We've got some absolute corkers into this one, but there is plenty to talk about and a lot of action to get through. And looking at the time, let's do it to it. Guys, gals, and the good and all beyond the binary, it is Wednesday, it is 8 PM, and welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, here to take you through the weird, wonderful and wacky world that is British ice hockey. We cover the absolute lot, from Belfast from Belfast to Bradford, from Leeds to Lee Valley. We leave no stone unturned as we will go through the result of absolutely every game from across all senior divisions of British hockey. We will talk about the news, we'll get your views, and we'll make sure we cover every inch of the action. And thank you for joining us once again on a Wednesday evening. There are, of course, a couple of games going on at the moment. Sheffield 1-0 up in their Challenge Cup game tonight against Nottingham. Robert Dowd, the Golden Child, on the scoreboard. Thank you for sticking that in the chat, Jamie. And if you haven't been paying attention to the Champions Hockey League, Belfast are 5-0 down in Bern to start the show. But there's a lot to talk about tonight. So what we will do, we'll do the housekeeping at the top of the show. Then we'll have a look at some of the bits and pieces you guys have been chatting about, and then we'll crack on, shall we? Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one site for all things related to British hockey. Of course, you can follow me through the season, my weird and bizarre journey that I now find myself on, commentating for the Guildford Flames. And that means you get the unique insight from high atop the spectrum, from in the box thinking. That is my write-up of every game I commentate on. You're going to get, like I say, the view not just on the game, but also on the process of learning a bit more about the Elite League as I go, on the process of what it means to commentate, some of the things I do, some of the things that work, some of the things that don't, the things that kind of go, what happens behind the scenes, as well as some analysis of the game into the bargain as well. You'll get that every time I commentate on the game, which means no game this week. Flames aren't at home, so I get a week off. Or do I? The other thing, of course, you can check out on the website is our Hockey Story series, long form, in-depth pieces of content. Some are videos, some are written. But what you do get is you get a nice in-depth view of bits and pieces from the 19th century to the present day, behind the Iron Curtain, into war and beyond. You can check out a variety of crazy bits and pieces and some fantastic stories of fighter pilots in World War II, a man who set up his own army unit to go and fight in World War II, whilst also being one of the most influential hockey builders of all time. Players, coaches, the people in the background, the people in the foreground, all of that you can check out through our Hockey Stories series. All that, of course, and nearly 15 years worth of stuff. Where are we? November, December, January, February, March. We are 5 months off our 15th birthday at BOTW. All of that is there over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Check down in the description, of course. You can hit the link tree. You'll get the links to all of our social media. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we are on Blue Sky. Weirdly getting a lot of Facebook followers recently. Not entirely sure why. So I don't remember buying them, but people just seem to have found the Facebook page, which is fun. So make sure you go check those out. There's also the link there to our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. If you like what you see, you want to help keep the lights on and keep the wheels turning, go chuck some money over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. If you can't, then that's absolutely fine. Please don't spend money you don't have on me. But remember that we are kind of fighting the algorithm as a British hockey show that kind of does everything. So share things out, tell your friends, post stuff on your social medias. It just helps the algorithm stuff. And of course, all the other YouTube gubbins, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Because of course the great thing is, and I know a lot of you watch on catch up, like I say, awesome that you do. We love our catch up. We love our catch up vote wherever you go. But joining us here on the Wednesday night does mean you do get to join in the fun of the chat. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, anything that you want to chat about as we work our way through the next sort of hour and a half-ish as we talk about British hockey. Stick it in the chat. We'll pick it up as we go. Last week, if you haven't checked out last week's show, go check out last week's show, particularly the end, where we had a really awesome conversation about price points and bits and pieces for women's hockey, and it just kind of came off of a comment that came from one of you guys in the chat. Shout out to Dave if he's still lurking around. But that was really awesome, and it was just great for those of us who are here, just kicking that football around of, like, should women's hockey be charging? How much should they charge? It was going to be awesome, and those bits and pieces. So it will be. Let's just, like I say, when those thoughts pop up, stick them in the chat. Let's rock and roll and do it that way. What have we got then? The warm-up question for folk in the chat tonight was the worst place you have slept. I have told you mine. Mike, airport floor in Arlanda, that's in Stockholm. Lay-by junction 15 of the M6 in Stoke. If you've never driven the M6, it is arduous. Night train to Umeå in Sweden is second class. That's your own fault for not paying for first class there, Mike. Dave P says the Highlands Hotel in Coventry. James says the Britannia in Coventry. This is the whole thing as well. Like, I have never paid for a night in a hotel in Coventry because I sleep in my mate's spare room. Is the short version on that one. Keep those coming in. John A. Steve Merry, good evening. Stansted Airport. Yeah, Stansted Airport, like I say, from Toronto Pearson, can totally do that. Colin Watson on a square step at a mate's flat. That's not brilliant. What else we got there? John Akers on the floor in probably 3 by 3 feet of space, and the floor was uneven. I once slept in a cupboard, which bizarrely, because I'm one of those people who can sleep anywhere, I was actually all right. The Highlands, all of it, yeah. 1-1 in Sheffield is the word. Someone has put it in the chat. Somebody put it in the chat. Yes, Tim Doherty looking to have, every time I seem to have Tim Doherty seems to score every time I watch him, which is a thing. Great to see folk joining the chat. Right. Let's get the big bits out of the way first. Do we want to talk about the Financial Times, or do we want to talk about Aidan Wilson? Let me do Aidan Wilson first, and then we'll talk about the Financial Times stuff. Because in true BOTW fashion, we do not shy away from any bits and pieces. Now, when it comes to Aidan Wilson, it is worth always remembering this, that there are 3 sides to every story. There is one side, the other side, and the truth that sometimes finds itself lying just between the two. For Aidan Wilson to pop his head above the parapet after his release from the Flyers and the talk about the fact that travel and work were getting in the way. Not uncommon. Players will, after they've been released, occasionally pop on their own social media and say thank you. It hasn't worked out. It's a shame, etc., etc. For Wilson to pop his head above the parapet and say, I didn't get what I was promised in negotiations, speaks to the fact that some of the things that you feel should have changed by now haven't. Now, Fife have obviously come back and said, we've upheld every end of the bargain that we agreed to. And if there has been a genuine crossing of wires here, then that is unfortunate. And something that arguably, in the long run, Aidan Wilson may potentially want to have kept behind closed doors, because the issue, of course, is we're saying something out loud, is everybody hears it, and you therefore have to deal with the consequences of that. With that being said, for a player to come out and say that they are having to sleep in their car is not good. It's not good for any level of bits and pieces. And if nothing else, could somebody not have chucked down an air mattress in an office so he didn't have to sleep in his car if that's what's happened? Somebody, and I'm really, really sorry, but I totally forget who it was, had said about, again, we're back to this notion of player welfare, of young British guys having to almost be destitute, having to work a second job to play in the Elite League. And yeah, the league needs to kind of figure something out here. It's always this kind of thing of young Brits don't want to commit to playing full time. They don't want to commit to being a professional and paying their dues. And the flip side of that is you have to pay somebody to be a professional. Now, the frustration comes because this feels like it was a really easily solvable issue. Even if it wasn't 100% of giving Aidan Wilson what he claims that he negotiated, which was a space in one of the team houses. Like, I get it. The situation in Fife is still really in transition. The new ownership has been in place, less than 6 months? Things are still new. They're still learning how to run a hockey organisation. Yes, Max Bebrayer and Gareth Chalmers have experience, have a vast hockey experience, but the practicalities on the day-to-day can be quite tough and things slip through the cracks. Maybe this is one of those things that did. The player welfare element, though, is the biggest issue here. And it's even just down to the simple things. Guys shouldn't be sleeping in their cars. And irrespective of how 100% true this is, maybe, like I say, the fact that Wilson has said he's sleeping in his car, I believe it, because enough guys will have done it because of work from time to time. What he and the Flyers negotiated is always going to be one side versus the other, right? And ultimately, the Elite League have a chance here, and yes, it's entirely reactive, but they have a chance to do something about this. Now, Nicky over at 4,000 and Counting has made no secret that he and a bunch of others in the background are working on a project in terms of things to do with player welfare, sort of a charitable organisation kind of thing that they're doing. More power to them. Keeping my eyes out for that. Let's see what that kind of looks like. We also have Nick Rothwell and his Retribe bits and pieces, doing bits and pieces and offering help and things to players there. The base level of this has to be, are we putting guys in a position to do the job of playing hockey for a job? And yes, guys may do other bits outside of it, right? Uni. Getting a part-time job just to keep your hand in. Or, going full on in the gym, right? Hockey takes up a portion of your week. And then there's a huge gap to kind of fill. If you've not, go and listen to the latest episode of The Heated Take, where the Guildford Flames, the newer Guildford Flames podcast, they talked to Kyle Locke, who's in Manchester this year, was in Guildford last year. And Locke picked up on a really, really important thing that actually I'd entirely forgotten about. which was when you're a university athlete, and a lot of these guys have been a lot of the guys in the elite league have played at university level, either in America or Canada, right? You do your hockey practice, well, the rest of your time is quite full. You've got classes, coursework, social activities. Stuff will be kind of focused around what you're doing, and being at university expands the bubble, but you're still in something of a bubble. And suddenly you become a professional hockey player, and there's all of this gap to fill. And I'm not necessarily saying that like British guys shouldn't have a job outside of hockey, right? But if you want them to be a professional, then the bulk of their income needs to be able to come from that. And what they choose to fill their other time with is entirely fine if they can turn up and they can perform and they can play hockey at the same time. And hockey is a short career. If you've got all that time outside of training and playing, why wouldn't you do other things? Expand your horizons. Go back to college. Train to be a PT. But we've also just got to think about the real basics. The Elite League takes a lot of flack. Some unfairly, some rightly. And we could all sit here and have the import debate until the cows come home. But we're not going to. In this individual situation, the league has a real option. A reactive option, yes, because arguably all of British hockey should be doing something about this before. But looking at those situations and saying to clubs, here is the baseline of what every club should be offering. And if you can't meet it, you need to tell us why. Because ultimately, the story is bad enough. But if a young lad's had to work a night shift and then sleep in his car because nobody could put up a camp bed in an office somewhere, it's a bad look for everyone. But then, of course, that wasn't even the biggest story we had this week. All the fun of the fair. You know what's coming now. I've said my piece on the Financial Times article, and there's been a lot of really, really good responses to it, and I would really strongly encourage you to go and check out the responses from female fans, female content creators, females involved in the game, right? 3on3 interviewed Sophie, and she makes videos on TikTok, and because I'm an old white dude, I'm not on TikTok. I keep thinking maybe I should, but then I worry about having the time to do it, right? So, but she is clearly a very popular, and I've spoken to a few people in the background who know Sophie. Apologies for not taking the time to speak to yourself, but I tweeted out how impressed I was with her on 3on3 and got a bunch of messages from people saying how awesome that she is. I'll tell you a tiny story to kind of go along with it. So yeah, check out all of the stuff from our female friends, right? Today, I was on Facebook, and for those of you who know, I've always been a really, really big proponent of Australian ice hockey. And one of the AIHL fan groups that I'm in had 2 new posts. I thought, oh, awesome. As you can imagine, the Australian season's been done for like a month and a half. So traffic is slow. So the fact there was 2 new posts, I popped in there and I had a look. The first one talked about the fact that Ice Hockey Australia is going through a bit of a weird patch at the moment where it appears that some of the folk at the top had not been entirely truthful about the financial situation of the association. And a chunk of that issue has resulted in the fact that the AWIHL, the Women's League that runs over November into February, is going to have 30% of its funding, not a 30% cut, 30% of last year's funding to work with. And it complained about the fact it's always the women and girls who end up suffering first. That this huge hole in Ice Hockey Australia's finances was impacting on women's hockey. The next post, the other post, was telling us in British hockey that we'd gotten our backs up over nothing. No publicity is bad publicity, we were told. The Financial Times has a massive, massive reach, and it doesn't matter about the fact that you don't like what the article says. It's eyes on the sport. And yeah, it doesn't matter about, whether You know, it doesn't matter so much what the article says, but people know that there's British ice hockey, and that should be celebrated. It takes a village to grow the sport, and that, you know, people need to get with the program and not worry so much about how people come in, but that they come in even irrespective of what this said. The big issue, of course, and aside from the fact that I committed the cardinal sin on the internet of posting angry, the problem, of course, is that that wasn't the problem. The person had read this, they'd read all the furore, and they'd misinterpreted the anger of people. People aren't fussed how you come to ice hockey. If for whatever reason you are a fan of a bit of a Jilly Cooper book, God rest her, you're a fan of that style of literature, and you thought, I wonder what an ice hockey game is like off the back of that, and if that is how you found us, you are welcome here. I do not care how you found this sport. The people in the chat, the people watching afterwards, and I will tell you till I'm blue in the face, ice hockey is the greatest sport on earth. I don't mind how you found it. I don't care if your great auntie took you to a game once. I don't care if you got a free ticket at uni, or somebody took the scout troop along and you went along to help. Or like I said, if you found us because of a dirty book, I don't care. You are welcome here. Ice hockey is such a ridiculous place that brings together so many random people of so many different things. We don't care how you found us. The issue with that article, and the reason why people, particularly our female fans and officials and friends, got so hacked off with it, was because it told a massive untruth about what this sport has become and how it got there. Romance novels about ice hockey have had an impact on attendances in some places. People are acknowledging that. And that's not a problem. It's not an issue. I was speaking today to Sean O'Connor of Oz Hockey Media about bits and pieces, and both teams in Sydney acknowledged that BookTok had had an impact on bringing new female fans into the game for the Ice Dogs and the Bears. But this idea that British hockey was saved by this is bonkers. British hockey was not picked up by this raft of people discovering the sport through this medium, and it wasn't whizzed to the top of the mountain. It wasn't picked up and flown there. The reason why British hockey has improved, and the reason why British hockey keeps going, is because all of us together went step for step, mile for mile up that mountain. Right? We keep hearing the phrase, the most watched indoor sport. Now, the numbers would be great to see on that, but we know how popular ice hockey is. We see attendances up in places. Love them or hate them, the Sheffield Steelers, in one of the larger population centres in our country, get 8,000 to 9,000 people to watch the sport. And it doesn't matter. And like I say, you know, those people don't magically come from nowhere. Sheffield's a bit of an odd case because it's a city that does well with North American sports. Shout out to the basketball team there. But don't tell us that something saved us when it didn't save us. British hockey has a long way to go to be perfect. We know that. There's so much random stuff we would all love to change. But the reason why this sport is so good is because it's really good. And everybody put a shift in to make it better. And I love the fact that so many female fans have poked their heads above the parapet and just gone, no, I didn't spot this game through this medium. Don't pretend it's like this. Don't colour our experience as female fans. Somebody said, how come you've not written about this? And I said, I don't need to. Nobody wants to hear from me. Nobody needs 2,000. You know, I will write. You know, you lot have regular viewers of this show will know. Give me half an hour, give me a day, and I will write you 30 words or 3,000, depending on what you want me to talk about. But ultimately, I'm saying this on this show because this is my place to do this, and it means I can get it off my chest and we can talk about it. But the biggest and most important views on this don't need to come from a 41-year-old white guy. Right? I appreciate I have a position within British ice hockey. I have carved out my niche, and yes, it is not the biggest niche by any stretch of the imagination. And I appreciate the fact that all of you give me credence to what I say and have done for a long time. And yes, I worked hard to have what I have within this sport. I do not take any of that for granted. But sometimes my voice doesn't need to be the first one. All I want to do is back up those people who turn around and say, don't colour our experience, because that's not what it was. Now, the journalist in question hopefully will learn from this experience, because journalism is a tough gig. People misunderstand what journalism is about, and it's not always about writing the things people like. It's not always about reading what you want. I do think it kind of needs to reflect the experience. They are guilty of shooting the story, as I say. I want my story to say this, and taking what is said and spinning it around and fitting it in and fitting things into what they want. You would not believe the articles over the years of BOTW that have not made the light of day, because I said, right, what can let's have a look at this. And when I went and dug into it, it wasn't there to tell. Because ultimately, sometimes the truth is dull. The truth doesn't sell copy. The frustrating thing, of course, is the truth about British ice hockey is fascinating. I did wonder in the midst of all this whether as a community we were being too parochial. Maybe the last couple of years, the loss of Mike Hammond and Alex Graham and Adam Johnson, I wondered whether they just made us a little bit sensitive. Maybe things were still a bit too raw. And then I sat back and I read all of these bits and pieces again. And I realised that, nah. For once, we weren't the mad ones. And they just got it wrong. I venture the Financial Times' response coming this Saturday in their magazine is going to please nobody. But a reminder, disagreement is fine. At the end of the day, they can have a weird, snide look at our sport. The door remains open. And whether it's because you wandered in on purpose or a book gave you an idea, you are welcome here. And you always will be. Maybe think about subscribing to the Financial Times in the future, though. Right. Fun bits out of the way. I'm going to have a quick drink. 6-0 Burn. What a surprise. People in the National League moan at me with the MK crowds. With MK averaging at 800 to 900 fans, more than any other team. Good publicity and getting the word out, and MK is all that matters. Jamie, I will ask this in the spirit of sincerity. You can leave the comment in the chat as I'm going to go. Start. As we'll start going through the results in a moment. Jamie, I ask you this: apart from the football team, the abomination that is, what are the other options around MK? And I don't mean, like I said, I don't mean that in a horrid way. I'm interested as to what are the other options. Like if you're a sports fan in around MK, you want a good live experience, right? What are your options for Milton Keynes? If you can sit that in the chat, I'd really appreciate that, because it's not my neck of the woods. A friend's daughter got free tickets a number of years back when the Wildcats went to her school. She went to a game, fell in love with it. It's now one of the biggest prospects in the WNIHL. Awesome. We love it. That's what we love to see. Right, let's hit some buttons. Let's talk about the fact that we have had a weekend's worth of action across the bits and pieces. I've altered it slightly. I've also pressed the wrong button. There we go. So what we're going to do, because we kind of mished Elite League and National League together recently, we're going to do all the Elite League, then all the National League, and then run it through from that. So we go back to last Saturday. There was no Friday night games in the Elite League last week, but we have had the Cup split and the League split. So we'll have a talk about a few bits and pieces first. As you can see, though, the first game that rocked up, Guildford, back in the winning column, finally, after 20 days without a win and conceding nearly 30 goals in the process. A 5-1 win at home over the Glasgow Clan. A composed, confident performance from the Flames. Justin Fazio very much on form. Looks like he's really settled. A massive one for him. A first professional goal as well for Josh Nixon on the empty netter. Go check out my write-up that's over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Go watch the highlights. Always appreciated. Cracking game of hockey, this one. Really, really enjoyed it. Glasgow aren't bad. They just weren't good on this night. More about them in a minute. The other game in the league on Saturday was another England-Scotland clash. Sheffield battered Dundee. 6-1 win for the Steelers at home. Comfortable stuff for Aaron Fox's side. In the Cup on Saturday, though, we did have a few games. Cardiff were 3-0 up and blew it against Coventry. The Blaze, doing what the Blaze do. Kevin Moore, Chaos Hockey, reigns supreme as the Blaze come all the way back to win by 6-5 at the Vindico. Manchester getting a big win in the NIC against the Panthers. That leaves the Panthers' qualification chances slightly wonky. Manchester can still technically qualify, but they need a lot of help to be able to do so. And in Group B, Belfast lose again, losing in a shootout to the Flyers. A huge big win. Christian Perdue with his first professional win as well, so congratulations to him on that one. Into Sunday, and there are a couple more games in the league. In Glasgow, having been thoroughly put to the sword by Guildford the night before, decided to turn up at the House of Steel and ruined it for Sheffield. A 3-2 win for the Clan. You may have seen the video of Matt Greenfield trying to draw a penalty. Spoiler alert: sticking out your arm and getting spun around like a top. That's Sami Aitakalio's job. But a big win for the Clan, who are at the moment top of the Elite League. There are of course 3 teams that have played no league games currently. And then Manchester, having scored 6 the night before in Nottingham, then put Fife thoroughly to the sword at home. A 6-1 win for the Storm against the Fife Flyers. And then that leaves the 3 games left in the Cup. And the Devils, well, a nightmare weekend for them. 0 points in the Cup. Shut out at home. Kevin Carr facing north of 40 shots as the Panthers thoroughly embarrass Cardiff at home. Belfast lose again. This time they just can't seem to beat the Dundee Stars. But the Stars get the shootout victory over the Giants, meaning that now, given that they're definitely going to lose tonight, the Giants have 3 defeats on the bounce. And then at the Sky Dome is a battle of the netminders. Matt Robson and Justin Fazio go back to war, but it's the Blaze who get the shootout victory. Jari Virtanen with the winner in the shootout. The Flames are eliminated mathematically from Challenge Cup contention. They would need to run the table. And have something go their way, but unfortunately they can't beat Nottingham or Sheffield on the tiebreaker. The Flames are out. The rest of their games are dead rubbers, but big one for Paul Dixon, getting guys back fit and healthy, and the chance to experiment and also just get some momentum going. They were fantastic on Saturday. They played really well on the Sunday as well. The lone Flames goal, the first professional goal for Sean Connery, so back-to-back nights for them. And like I said, Virtanen with the game winner in the shootout. That means that we just have a quick look at the Challenge Cup groups. As we say, Guildford mathematically out. Manchester still technically in a shout, but it's Coventry in the box seat in Group A. Cardiff could have qualified and blew it, and then we've got Sheffield and Nottingham and Manchester battling it out for the play-in spot. In Group B, well, Belfast have played the same number of games as Dundee, and Dundee are on top. They lead by a point. You'd think it's going to take a lot for Fife to pull this all the way back. Glasgow have 2 games in hand, so the Giants' qualification is still very, very much up in the air. And this is the team that has had home right all the way through the knockout stages of the last couple of Challenge Cups. A big one for them. They need to find some form. So we have a look. Of course, that's tonight's fixture: the Steelers and the Panthers. It was still 1-1 the last time I checked. I shall quickly flick the phone. Still 1-1 in the second period there at the House of Steel. And then Friday night, it's a league encounter. Glasgow and Manchester will do battle at the Braehead Arena. Without, of course, Mitch Hurd, having been released by the Clan. Of course, a massive amount of rumour that he was about to rock up in Belfast, and saw a bumper audience for A View from the Bridge last night, only for people to not realise that it was a pre-record. And no news on Mitch Hurd's new destination just yet, should there be one. Saturday then, and we've still got a little bit of a league and cup split. A few games in the league though. Manchester take on Dundee. Guildford's lone game of the weekend is the long trip up to Kirkcaldy to take on Fife. Cardiff will try again against Coventry. This time in the league, having blown a lead and thrown away the points in the cup last weekend. Can they get revenge over Kevin Moore's men? And then in the cup on Saturday, just the one game, Glasgow, having played on the Friday, played at the Storm on the Friday night, will host the Giants on Saturday. Into Sunday, just the one game in the league, and again the Devils have back-to-back weekends of the same teams, but this time again in the league they take on the Nottingham Panthers at the Motorpoint. And then a couple of games in the cup. Belfast return to the SSC, looking to get back on the horse against the Five Fires. Coventry take on Sheffield as we wait again to see how much of a show Colton Saucerman is going to put on. With the Elite League done then, let's have a look at the NIHL National Division, which takes us back to last Friday night. And finally, it was Shark time. Solway on the board at last, and something of a big surprise. The Steel Dogs form has been all over the show, and they had the points nicked away from them by the Solway Sharks. Martin Grubb's side finally getting some points on the board in this season. Takes us then into Saturday. Leeds, of course, like I said, had a couple of defeats to start the campaign, but they managed to squeak out of Essex with a 4-3 win against the Romford Raiders. The same scoreline, but reversed down in Wiltshire as Swindon kept up winning ways. They beat the Hull Seahawks, and it's been a tough start for Matty Davis's side. Lots of good performances, lots of goals, but not always getting the points out of it. Sheffield rebounded from losing to Solway, but they needed extras to do it down in the southwest against the Bristol Pitbulls. OT being needed to separate the sides there. He says, speaking in English, and then. Well, MK battered Peterborough in the Ashes in the first game of the Ashes. 8-4 win for Tim Wallace's side, and a little bit of a kick in the shins for the Phantoms, who had started the season particularly well. Into Sunday, Leeds and Romford about faced up to the Castle in a much easier win for the Knights this time, 5-2 there. And Hull responded from losing down in Swindon by kicking Solway very, very firmly in the knee. After such a good Friday night, a tough Sunday for the Sharks, who are edging closer, of course, to the refurb work being finished at the Dumfries Ice Bowl. Should be home in the next couple of weeks, but 9-2 the final score there. The Seahawks getting back to winning ways. And then Peterborough, they ended the unbeaten run of the only unbeaten side left in the division, having shipped 8 goals the night before. A big win for Ashley Tate's side. Tom Norton, the overtime hero in Cambridgeshire, as the Phantoms beat the Wildcats. The Swindon dropped points for the first time this season. And then Telford, well, Jay King's late penalty, which is going to see him sent to the naughty step. We await for word on that in the next couple of days. But Telford end up blowing Bristol away 9-4 with a bunch of late goals. Bristol had been in it until Jay King decided that slashing somebody was the best course of action. It was not the best course of action. And Telford, who, as we'll see momentarily from the table, Telford have had a really good start here. 9 points from 5 games, a game in hand on Swindon that would take them level, and they've got a better goal difference. Certainly scored a lot of goals to start the campaign. Basingstoke are bottom, but they've also played 1 game compared to the fact most teams have played 5 or 6. We still await any word as to what's happening in Basingstoke. We do know, of course, though, that the Bison will play games this upcoming weekend, but it's the Swindon. It's Cats on all around at the top. Swindon from Telford, followed by MK and Peterborough, who are level on 8 points from 5. Leeds are in 5th. Sheffield, Hull, and Romford make up the remainder of the playoff spots. Bristol, Solway, and as I said, Basingstoke with a lot of ground to make up in terms of games to play. A quick look, though, at the cup table, because there is a slight change here. Swindon, top of the league table, but have only played 2 cup games and are down in 6th at the moment. Telford are top of the cup table, with MK, Peterborough and Sheffield, the other teams in the semi-final spot so far. Sheffield have a game in hand on Leeds, which takes them above them. And then it's all still much for muchness, because not everybody's played all of their cup games so far. We then look into the fixtures. No Friday Night Lights in the National this week, but a full docket of fixtures across Saturday, and the Basingstoke Bison are finally back in action. They travel down to the southwest to take on the Bristol Pitbulls. MK host Leeds in the first big battle between the two heavy hitters of the last couple of years. Peterborough take on Hull, a game that you think from a Hull perspective they're going to really want to and need to win. Romford take on high-flying Telford, and the Cats look to try and get back onto winning ways as they welcome Sheffield to the southwest. And then on Sunday, well, it says the Basingstoke Bison are at home. It's in Swindon, this game. It's a 4 p.m. face-off. The Bison as well offering free coach travel from Basingstoke to Swindon for the game. It is a first-come, first-served on that one. Go check the Bison's social media. I unfortunately will not be there. I have prior commitments this coming Sunday, so I will not be at that game. I'm looking for a game to go to on Saturday. I'm hoping the ice holds out in Gosport as a result. Elsewhere, though, Hull take on Romford. Leeds take on Solway. Sheffield versus MK. Now, given the amount of talent that is in that Sheffield side, this could be a really big statement game for them if they can do it. But another one that could be a low-key banger to be game of the weekend, potentially. Telford versus Peterborough on Sunday in Shropshire. That could be a really interesting one. Let's just have a quick squiz then at the chat. Those are the top two divisions of British hockey already dealt with. Dave, I was at the Steelers Sunday, a very even game. Just the Clans forwards were a bit more trigger happy where the Steelers were passing too much rather than shooting. They were a little bit guilty of that when they came down to Guildford, but I think the Steelers started very slow before working their way back up on that one. Wonder how long Dots will put will out the Pitbull in the pound for that insanity. Unknown, Mike, but we'll certainly see. We'll certainly see on that front, I think there. Mark just saying sobs. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, it's going to say sad times. Tigers have beaten Leeds and MK2. They have as well. It's been such a good start for Telford. And of course, two big milestones in Telford over the last couple of things. The 40th birthday of the club, which of course you think about the ups and downs that Telford have had as a club, financial issues, being bottom of the EPL for large stints, all of the red hockey nonsense, recovering from that, building things back up. We also saw 800 games as coach for Tom Watkins. We've interviewed him here on BOTW. Quality human being. His contribution to British hockey, both as a player and a coach, has been astronomical. Congratulations to all in Shropshire for all the success. In this 40th year, of course, we know the first two National Division titles were won by the Telford Tigers. Can they bring it back to prominence again this time out? Is it really 40 years? 40 years of hockey in Telford might be the best way to describe it. Then, Mark, I think maybe. I expect Barring in King's outcomes tomorrow. I expect Barring 4 to 6 games and King 2 games. We'll certainly see, but yes, it should come tomorrow. Dops normally meet on a Wednesday night. We normally take things on Thursday. Tigers imports of class. Yep, every bit of all the highlights and bits and pieces, all the game tape I've watched is make they look like a superb group. Henderson and Thompson we knew were good, but everything seems to be rocking for them. Is the rink back up in Gosport? It is closed till Friday, is what we've been told. I only say this because, and it's such a it's only because the Junior Devils are at home on Saturday. I have struggled for a very, very long time to convince my son to come to a game. What my hope was to take him on Saturday. Low risk, because the Junior Devils are due to be at home on Saturday. He says, desperately trying to remember who they're playing. I want to say they're playing They're meant to be playing Chelmsford. Where are we? 11th of October. No, it's not Chelmsford. Who are they playing them? It's not moving across for me to actually check. That's really unhelpful. Saturday, the 11th of October. Solent versus... Bristol Pitbulls 2. So Solent Junior Devils versus Pitbulls 2, right? And so from an experience of kind of like knowing what happens at hockey and knowing what I'm like at hockey and knowing what my son is like, I figured that this Saturday, no Lords, no Masters, and I figured actually like just taking my son out, because I've got him on Friday. We've got him on Friday, right? Because he's got an inset day, so I'm taking him Friday, and he's got another inset day on Monday, so the wife's taking him Monday. But I figured just a couple of nice boys' days would be a really, really good idea, and I figured that taking him to Solent for a Div 2 game would be a really good way to kind of ease him in, let him see hockey, let him experience it, and also as well, just because he'll be a bit quieter, if he needs to have a run around or he needs to move around, he can move around, and I can teach him about what it's like to be at a game that we don't move during play. That if we need to grab a snack, we can grab a snack. If we can get there early and get something to eat at Starbucks or something like that, or the Costa nearby, those kind of things. So there's a bunch of stuff to help on that front, and just want to see. But yeah, we should find out about Gosport hopefully on Friday. What else have we got? Thompson looks amazing for the games I saw against the Bison. Yeah, he looks brilliant. Still 1-1 in Sheffield. Amazingly, no penalties called on that game. It's Wednesday night. Everyone's got school in the morning, so they're all ignoring it. All four doing great. Yes, this is the other big talking point as well for Telford. Brindley Caps has come back from trying things out in North America, has come back to Britain, and just yet it's just working for him. Obviously, Romford will be annoyed, but he needs to be within shouting distance of Coventry, and Coventry have first rights on his services above Telford even. Big difference in the Tigers is less penalties given away. So far, you have Deacon Fielder. We love Deeks. We do love Deeks a lot. But yeah, one of the things certainly for me, I wrote about this actually in my piece. This disconnect of having the separate cup and league games in the Elite League is weird for me, because I just prefer the way the National Division do it. I prefer the doubling up of games and then separating out the cup. If we're not going to have a true knockout cup in that sort of sense, then having it this way and allowing teams to kind of put things together. Now, I appreciate that the Challenge Cup kind of serves a purpose for the Elite League, because you can't have playoff series. So you end up having quite a short season otherwise. So the cup at the front makes up for the lack of playoff at the end, and you have those extra games, right? And also, Britain is Britain. Having a cup competition is very British sport. And yes, hockey is a North American sport, but we can twist and have things our own way into that bargain. We don't have to stick blindly to everything that happens in North America, right? So I get it, but it still feels weird. The Deacon Field box. What they should do, instead of retiring his jersey when Deeks eventually calls time, just put like a tea towel at the back of the penalty box with his number in it. Should do that instead. You'd probably enjoy that actually. Bless his little heart. Just 26 somewhere hidden in both penalty boxes. But yeah, so like it's still hard for me to get used to, and then having like league games and cup games happening on the same night but different things. For me, I can't help but think they should just front load the season, do the cup games, do the group games, and then kick on with the league and have the semi-finals and finals and stuff like on midweeks. But like, say a thing out loud, right? I'm the new boy still. Who's going to listen to me on that front? Either way, what we should do though is we will hit some buttons and have a quick look at the SNL, because of course we have pictures from the SNL. Another busy weekend and more goals galore. Albeit, as you can see from that top score line, Kilmarnock got a goal. Oh, hello, that's gone. Let's do that. There we go. Just so people can actually read that bottom result. Kilmarnock got a goal. They still lost 6-1 at home to Kirkcaldy, but they did score, which means they are over a goal per game. Just. But a big comfortable win there for Kirkcaldy over there in Kilmarnock. Edinburgh winning the Edinburgh-Glasgow derby by beating Paisley by 4-1. Dundee back in action after a little bit of a break there, and the league champions giving North Ayr a thorough kicking, 14-1. Didn't even make the 20s. What is this nonsense? And then Solway, who are still without a win since their entry into the Scottish National League, but they certainly ran the Aberdeen Lynx close on Saturday night, but the Lynx getting a 5-3 victory there. Paisley got over their disappointment against Edinburgh by shutting out Kilmarnock at home. 8-0 the final score there for the Pirates against the Thunder in that one. And Kirkcaldy made it a maximum weekend. They beat North Ayr. A much better performance from the Wild on this one, not conceding double digits, but the Kestrels win by 6-2 in Kirkcaldy. That means if we have a look at the SNL table, no action for the Warriors this weekend. However, big one coming up this week is Whitley versus Edinburgh at Murrayfield. That game has got awesome potential written all over it. But the Warriors still with maximum points, 10 from 5. Aberdeen and Edinburgh and Kirkcaldy now all on 8 points. Dundee still have a perfect record, but have only played the 3 games. They are 3 from 3, having only conceded 4 goals in those 3 games, but having scored 40. That's what scoring so highly will do for you. Paisley have 6 points as well, but they have a 3 and 3 record. North Ayr 1 and 5, but they do at least have 2 points. And then Solway and Kilmarnock there at the bottom with nil. With no points there at all. As you can see from Kilmarnock, those 67 goals conceded in just 5 games. What this means then, though, is we do need to go and have a quick squiz at NIHL Division 1 and Division 2. We'll start, as we usually do, in the north. And it was a fun weekend, this one. Deeside and Widnes going back-to-back against each other. You can see the score there, obviously. Deeside getting the overtime winner, and who else but Jake Witkowski, who has scored his 9th goal of the season inside 4 games. Which is bonkers, of course. But it should be said, a fun one, this one, just because the 2 netminders in this one, two lads who both play for the same junior system, both played conference together, and both now doing it at the opposite end of the country. Tyler Delabatouche in net for the Dragons, Luca Tassadri in net for the Wild. Two lads from the east of London into Essex who are now plying their trade, doing things up north. Tyler at University in Manchester, Luca at University in Leeds. Of course, Luke had that horrible year out a lot of last year with injury. Now back on the horse with the Wild, doing great things there. But as we say, the extra point goes to the Wild. That late goal, Jake Witkowski with a hat trick, Charles Phillips with the other goal for the Dragons. The goals from the Wild coming from Flynn Massey and Jonathan Williamson. And then, well, the Barons, they couldn't get the game at home because they had issues with their plant recently, so they finally got the chance to take on the Hull Jets. And another game that goes all the way to overtime. Solihull 4-2 up in the 3rd period in this game, and then Hull come roaring all the way back. Kieran Beach, the hero, tying the game up inside the 3rd period, and then getting the overtime win as well. In a game that saw Henry Adams chucked out for a cross check late in the 3rd, but a big win at home for the Jets in this one. A hat-trick from Kieran Beach and 2 goals from Ethan Daintith. Goals for the Barons coming from Lucas Price, Brandon Anderton and Sean O'Neill in a game that saw Jake Riley, then the Australian import, finally make his debut. The Scimitars, well, it goes from bad to worse for the Shims. Bottom of the table, 7 defeats on the spin, and it was always going to be a tricky one against the Billingham Stars. And Billingham do what Billingham do against lower end sides. They start to light them up. All of the big names on the score sheet in this one for the most part. Joe Matthewman, George Crawshaw, and Jacob Brammer for the Shims. For the Billingham Stars, 2 goals for Alex Preston, 2 goals for Callum Wilkinson, and then goals from Ian Brown, Lucas Dowdle, Michael Elder, Roland Grittans, Joe Dowdle, and Chris Sykes. A relatively comfortable night for the netminders there. Billingham managing to get game time for both Jacob Hammond and Jack Wakefield into the park in there. As you can see there, Nick Winters, 9 goals on 53 shots through 48 minutes and change. Over in Yorkshire versus Lancashire, and well, I think we probably could have all guessed this one coming, but the Knights still battling away. They are at least on the board with a win this season, but another defeat for them. The Hawks go to 5-0 with the 7-2 victory over at the Castle in a game that the Hawks took 0 penalty minutes, which given how much Andy McKinney's fought this year, something of a surprise for people. Unsurprisingly, the goals for the Leeds Knights too came from Owen Dell, who seems to score an awful lot for them. It's 2 hat-tricks for the Hawks, Jacob Lutwich and Charlie Thompson on the board for the Hawks. The other goal in the pack coming from James Riddock. And then on Sunday, well, the Stars went 10-10-10 and turning into Ty Dillinger from NXT back in the day. Hull, of course, had that great win on Saturday. It was not to be replicated at the Forum on Sunday as the Stars go absolutely ballistic on them and win by 10 goals to 1. Another busy evening for the scorers at the Forum. Richie Hagar with the lone Jets goal in the third period there. Hat trick from Darren Stattersfield, which again, make your own jokes. Only one goal, but a 6-point night for James Moss, who went 1+5. Other goals coming from Chris Sykes, Roland Grittans, Lennon Thomas, Lucas Dowdle, Ian Brown, and Alex Preston. 40 shots that Jacob Hammond faces. Zach Brown and Dom Smith getting some time here. Solihull, though, back at home. The ice fully fixed. And, well, yeah, sorry, Sheffield. It was you who had to pay the price. A 5-1 win for the Barons in this one. 2 goals from Louis Allen and then goals from Alex White, Nicholas Otterson, and a really nice breakaway goal from Edgar Landsberg. The video was doing the rounds there, set up by Jake Riley. But yeah, as you can see there, 2 unassisted goals in 10 seconds for Louis Allen in the first period. Solihull very quietly putting together some really, really good stuff. Brandon Chard with the lone goal for the Scimitars in that one. And then they about faced and headed from Deeside to Merseyside, but the Dragons get the points. This time not needing the extras, they managed to come from 2-1 down and then score 5 unanswered goals. The Dragons have played 5 games in League and Cup. Jake Witkowski now has 13 goals, having scored another hat-trick on the night here. So in fact, scoring 4 goals and then goals as well from Ross Kennedy and Jared Dickinson, Flynn Massey and Andrew Hopkins with the goals for the Wild in this one. Tyler Delabatouche away with the Manchester Storm on this evening. Chase Gledhill getting the time between the pipes, only facing 15 shots. Luca Desantri faces 42. Blackburn, well, they managed to keep going, having beaten Leeds, one of the lower end sides, on Saturday night and Sunday night. They gave Nottingham a good old-fashioned kicking. These 2 sides do not like each other a great deal, and so the Hawks fans will have been smiling as they move to 6-0. Alex Rushby with both goals, unsurprisingly for the Lions. So the Lions played 7 games. Rushby has 9 goals in that stretch, but ultimately the Lions no match for the Hawks, who put over 60 shots on the net-minding call there. 2 for Jacob Lutwich, 2 for Gary Simpson, 1 for James Royds, and 5 goals for Adam Barnes. A 7-point night for the former Leeds Knights man. As we can see there from the numbers, both Isaac Ballinger and Harvey Kembury getting some time in net and just getting absolutely shelled. Harrison Walker played the first period, turned away 7 shots, and then Nick Trapans was given the remaining 40 minutes. Just have a quick... Luca Tasadri, young man, good to see you. Witkowski is pretty good, isn't he? You tell me, lad. You're the one who's had to face the shot. And yes, also as well, if you haven't checked it out, go check out the hockey stories over on bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Given the fact that I had an interview with him earlier in the summer, lots of fun. Luca, great to see you in the chat, mate. At some stage, Luca, what we should do, we should get you on here and you can go through all of these bits and pieces with me and talk me through the games. That'd be fun. Belfast Field of Burn. Quality puns in the chat. Either way, this upcoming weekend in North 1, 3 games on both Saturday and Sunday. Telford Tigers too had a really interesting start to the year. Have certainly caused turned a few heads already. They take on Billingham. That could be a really good game. Sheffield Scimitars just looking for any glimmer of hope they can find. They take on the Hull Jets at Sheffield, and Leeds Knights 2 take on the Deeside Dragons. And then on Sunday, the Dragons are back at home. That's 5:15 over in Queens Ferry against Leeds Knights 2. They will about face. Widnes take on Solihull. That could be a good one, actually. That should be fun for you. Watch out for Otterson, Luca. And then 7:20 on the small pad at the NIC, the Nottingham Lions take on the Hull Jets. How does Tom Barry get a 10-minute illegal equipment penalty? By it being really illegal. Might have continued to play with something and then been told off about it, or potentially given a warning and still doing it would probably be the answer there, Jamie. In South 1 then, Streatham, in a game that they probably will have looked towards trying to win, but getting not needing overtime in this one, a 5-2 win. It was pretty close for a while. 3-2 for most of the third period before an empty net from Danny Ingoldsby was then added to with a late JJ Pitchley goal. But Swindon, well, they were ahead at the end of the first period through Jay Warren's goal, and before Dan Rose got in on the action as well. That's a great addition for Streatham. Yeah, so Dan Rose, Aidan Doughty, Jared Lane, Danny Inglesby and JJ Pitchley for the Red Hawks, Jay Warren and Jan Costel Sr. from Jan Costel Jr. for Wildcats 2. And then, this one was a bit bonkers, and another one that we need to talk about. 15-0. And as you can see there, goals 11, 12, 13, 14 and 15 were all on the power play. The biggest thing, though, of course, that you will notice, and no, your eyes do not deceive you, but any of our friends from Swindon or anybody who's played in the anyone who's played in the South will know, Neil Lydiard scored. And Neil Lydiard didn't just score, he scored early. Slough 4-0 up after 7 minutes and 7 seconds. Also, as you can tell from that one, at that point, Newhall Lindgren had scored the same amount of goals as Neil Lydiard. That didn't last. But yes, just an absolutely bonkers game, this one. If we scroll down, you will see the bits and pieces here. Because the Buccaneers getting absolutely shelled. Paul Max van Mullen, as you can see, went in and then was pulled out, not unreasonably. And Alex Cole, the backup, was put in. He played 12 minutes and 31 seconds of action before, as you can see here, 44-55, he was thrown out for headbutting. Now, I don't know whether you've seen the video. It was doing the rounds, where having cross-checked Brandon Miles in the back, that obviously started a bit of a fracas because Brandon Miles never backwards about coming forwards. And then the video is relatively clear that the Romford netminder headbutts Brandon Miles. He then also got sucker punched by him later on just for the extra bits and pieces. I thought he'd have retired. No, Mark, no. No, he didn't. All things considered. But ultimately in the end, Alex Cole has an absolute nightmare of a night. The Buccaneers have an absolute nightmare of a night. As Van Mullen, having been pulled not unreasonably when the score was already getting away from the Buccaneers, then has to go back in. The poor guy just gets lit up like a Christmas tree. If we scroll down here, 13 goals on 67 shots for Max van Mullen. That means that Max made 54 saves and still shipped 13 goals. The poor lad. A 19-shot shutout for Matt Smith on the other end. Let's just run down here and get a proper look at this. Nobody scoring a hat-trick. 1 goal for Dylan Halicka. 2+4 on the night for Seb Moore. 1 goal for Timo Lindgren. 2 goals for Lewis English. 1 goal for Neil Lydiard. 2+3 night for Christian Moore. A goal for Benny Lee Newman. 2+4 night for Juha Lindgren. 1+1 for Jacob Soper. And 2+2 for Ollie Hemmings-Marr. What an absolutely crazy night. And there is another person who should be, you'd think, be looking at a relatively long ban, all things considered, Alex Cole, because you can't go around headbutting people and starting fights. It didn't get any better for the Buccaneers the next night at home, shut out at home by the Solent Devils, who've had a pretty decent start to the season, as you can see there. 3-0-1-1, while the Buccaneers are yet to get on the board. At all. Travis Penny, Charlie Wedge and Harry Harcup on the board for Alex Murray's side. And a pretty comfortable game from what I understand from the Devils in the end. A 26-shot shutout for the ASCAP, Aaron Taylor, and Max van Mullen making 35 saves. 35 plus 54. I mean, that 89 shots for Max to face across the entirety of the weekend. God love the boy. Remember, he does our match graphics for the National Division. Hope you're relaxing there, Max, a little bit. Luca, I'd love that, but I think everyone else wouldn't want that. I'm not as professional as you. I'll tell you what we'll do, Luca, because I've got his number as well. We get you and Tyler. We'll sack off the regular format, and we'll just do like an interview. Or we'll do an interview piece. We'll just do a live stream with the two of you just talking about life in North One. Let's do that, and then you don't need to worry about reading through all of this nonsense. Alex Bison Jr. scoring for the Devils. Very, very true, Mark. Very, very true. The Jets get maximums on the weekend. This one was a Challenge Cup game, though, it should be said. Beating the Invicta Dynamos by 5-3 down in Kent. A pretty decent performance, all in all, from the Dynamos, but the Jets just having that little bit extra. Mads Toon, Daniel Gattenby has made a really good start to life in Kent. 2 goals, for Toon, and 1 from Gattenby in this one. Juha Lindgren, Jacob Soper, Seb Moore, Luke Smithell on the power play and a late short-handed empty netter from Ollie Hemmings-Marr, taking the Jets over the line in this one. And then, well, the big one, the Chieftains, who'd had a bit of a torrid start, had lost 2 games to start the season in the league, but they beat the Red Hawks in Chelmsford, having the scores having been tied at 1 at the end of the first period. Cam Bartlett, Tom Saw, and then Grant Bartlett on the board for the Chieftains in this one. Ziggy Beasley with the lone goal for the Red Hawks, and the Red Hawks outshoot the Chieftains. But Ross Miller standing firm between the pipes, and just a bad night at the office for Ben Painter and the Red Hawks on this one. And then, well, the battle of the western sides in South won, then a pretty comfortable win in the end for the Swindon Wildcats, having lost to Streatham the night before. They put Cardiff firmly to the sword, 11 goals to 3. Cardiff were 1-0 up, but eventually just an unrelenting barrage from Ken Forshee's side. Joe Llewellyn, Josh Poole and Ellis Shepherd with the goals for the Fire. Goals for the Cats, 2 from Jake Williams, 2 from Shannon Taylor, 2 from Jay Warren, and then lone goals from Oscar Sagan, Alfie Goddard, Jan Kostel Jr., Samurai, and Ethan Taylor. That's right, we have 2 father-son combinations playing for the Cats. As Ben Clark-Leach sees most of the action. Good to see Owen Crowe getting some time in net, though, as well. Next week in South 1, just the one game on the Saturday in South 1. Amazingly, Streatham take on Invicta in League and Cup action on the High Road, and then Sunday 3 games on the docket. Romford will look to try and not concede 15 against Slough. Invicta versus Streatham, and Cardiff versus Chelmsford. Be prepared for a 3-hour live stream. Will just be a good chin wag. Hey, it works. But this is also the reminder that I know how to direct conversations better than you two do. But we'll talk to Tyler about it. Let's talk to Tyler about it and see if we can convince him to do it about the life of young British netminers and stuff. Because I think we could do something there. North 2 then, and as you can see, pretty good for the Kingston Sharks, back in league action after a little bit of a pause for them. Their second game and their second win, condemning Nottingham to their 4th loss already of the campaign. 5-0 and a big 23-shot shutout into the bargain. Declan Kime with 2, Mackenzie Barker with 2, and Charlie Powell getting in on the action late there for the Sharks. A 23-shot shutout for Evan Byron Bates. James Guest making 51 saves the other way. And then this one that was going on whilst I was commentating, it was so bonkers I actually mentioned it live in an Elite League stream, because it was into the shootout when I noticed the score, which meant that, yes, it was 9-9 at the end of regulation. Callum Russell ultimately proves to be the hero for the Sutton Sting. He gets what's designated as the winner in the shootout. But God love you, Bradford. What a performance. You've got to be kicking yourself at this stage. As we can see here, 2 players, one from either side, with 4-goal nights. In this one, you have to wonder if you're Bradford, what you'd have to do to win games if this is what happens and you still end up losing. 4 goals for Conor Medley, a hat-trick and a 5-point night for Josh Stockton, Joe Howie and Kieran Furlong. Excuse me. With the goals for the Bulldogs in this one. Callum Russell credited with 4. Jeff Cock, Charlie Saunders, Joe Colton and Joel Bark, all with a goal apiece, and 2 goals from Justin Dennison. Look away now, netminders. But that said, still a pretty impressive performance, getting with 47 saves for Jake Lowndes. That's not bad, all in all. Do have to wonder why they bothered putting Nathaniel Bell into that one if you're Sutton, but such is the nature of things. It was a bit tighter the next day, and between 2 sides that had decent-ish starts. Certainly the Titans have had a much better start than everybody was thinking they were going to have. At the Sheffield derby, Sutton 4-0 up, nearly chucked this one away, but the Sting do get the point in regulation in the end. As you can see there, Sutton 4-0 and 6-3 up, with Sheffield scoring late goals, but ultimately, and well, as you can also see, Cameron Akers chucked out on the 60-minute mark for fighting, so it was definitely an ill-tempered game at Sheffield in the end in this one. 2 goals for Lewis Swaffield, 1 each for Mark Illingworth, Tom Humphreys and Sam Parkin for the Titans. Justin Dennison with 2, and then goals from Cam Glasby, Joe Colton, Lawson Glasby and Elliot Meadows, getting the Sting the victory in that one. And whilst the first team had a pretty decent weekend, the second team for Deeside were not as lucky on Sunday. Whilst the first team were over in Merseyside playing the Wild, the seconds were at home, shut out at home by the Coventry NIHL Blaze. Ashton Rudkin, Nick Alley, Harrison Sumner, Nick Alley and Arthur, second from Alley of the night, and Arthur Brooks with the goals for the Blaze. 3 goals in that final period, just pushing them up and away and out of sight of the Dragons when it comes down to it. Only 11 shots put on Hayden Laverick. One of those games that as a netminder can be quite tough all in all, because you're facing so little. Leo Hyman in net for the Dragons at the other end. What's that? 62 minus 5, so that's 57 saves on 62 shots. Still pretty impressive numbers from the young man between the pipes for the Welsh side. And then Lions 2, they end up losing at home to Billingham. I mean, that's a pretty decent side the Buccaneers have put together this year. But yeah, another tough one for the Lions. 0 from 5 now as things move on there. 2 goals on the night from Lewis Hall, 2 from Matt Pickup and Ethan McLaughlin, Dan Capel and Dimitri Grittans getting in on the action as well. A 27 shot shutout for Ron Pearce between the pipes for the Bucks. Next weekend then in North 2 games on Saturday. Sutton versus Billingham. That could be another low-key banger this weekend. Kingston take on Altrincham at the World's Most Versatile Arena. That's at 5:30 in Hull. Sunday, the Titans will take on the Sharks at Ice Sheffield. Buccaneers return home to take on Altrincham, and Bradford will take on Deeside too. If Bradford score 9 goals again and don't win, I think at that stage you need an exorcism at Bradford if that's the sort of thing that happens. But we'll figure that one out. What have you put there, Luke? Can't wait to see Ollie in a Bison jersey. Me too. I actually think Flanagan should have let him do it this year. To be honest, Mark, if I'm 100% honest. Live stream title, does Jesus save more than these two? It doesn't have to be on a Wednesday, Luca. We'll work it out. Don't you worry. We've got ways and means. What a game on Sunday for the Cats. 8 of 11 goals. Recorded 8 of 11 goals. They're all great goals here. Well done there. See, I know you've been trying to do a lot of the socials and bits and pieces like that. It's obviously tough work, so keep going, my good man. South 2 then. Let's have a look at that to finish off the men's league so far, and a pretty comfortable win all things considered for the Peterborough Phantoms too. Certainly, as we can see, they get a little bit feisty again, a bit, but ultimately in the end, no big dramas in this one as far as we're aware from Peterborough. They comfortably beat Chelmsford by 8 goals to 1. Chelmsford as well having a late penalty shot in this one that was saved in the end by Ryan Bainborough. Not huge rosters on either side, it should be said, but we can obviously see the goals there. Dan Martin, Nathan Pollard and Connor Pollard with 2 apiece. AJ Herring and Nathan Long with the other goals for the Phantoms. George Beckett with the lone goal for the Warriors in this one. Another big night, 49 saves from Alexei Koklov in net for the Warriors. Invicta, with another comfortable win, they beat the Solent Junior Devils by 8 goals to 2. Said Sheffield so often in the last little while, I've gone mad. But yeah, just a nice easy one. As we know, the age-old rule: if you're new to the show, you don't count out the Invicta Mustangs. Is what we say. We don't count out the Invicta Mustangs, and certainly no reason to count them out when they're putting up 8 goals at home. A pretty comfortable one for them in the end over the Devils. Chris Nekrasavicius and Ollie Cackett with the goals for the Junior Devils, who have, if you haven't noticed, I totally missed this, but obviously I can now notice. I noticed the other week that he is on the roster now. Former Elite League netminder and former Isle of Wight raider Greg Blaze back playing competitive hockey between the pipes. He is old enough to be Tyler Campbell's dad. I'm pretty certain of that one. Goals for the Mustangs, 2 for James Laming, 2 for Aaron Ferris, and then goals from Ed Stedman, Jake Stedman, and Ed Gibson. The Guildford Phoenix are my friends from up the road with a nice comfortable League and Cup win over the Lee Valley Lions. Pretty decent performance though, all in all, from the Lions to keep the Phoenix within touching distance, but ultimately you can't do too much against this side this quality. And a 4-goal night for Scott Bailey, already on 5 goals after 3 games for them. Sol Studley with the other marker for the Phoenix. Alan Kavizov and Ollie Davies with the goals for Lee Valley on this night at the Spectrum. As you see there, Oscar Minton only facing 17 shots, whereas Ethan Frayne at the other end manages to make 42 saves on the evening. And then he's been waiting all evening for it. Steve Merry, make yourself known, because we do need to talk about this one. Because we finally got round to them. But they have, having lost the first game of their existence at Ali Pali the week before, the Slough Spitfires come back home and turn it around and win against the Haringey Huskies in their first ever home encounter at the Slough Ice Arena. Ed Cave Humphrey, Isaac Merry, which is why Steve's paying double attention, Aaron Edworthy, and a late goal from Alex Rossum to kill things off. Goals for the Huskies in this one coming from Connor Smith and Ruskin Springer Hughes. Obviously, a little bit of feistiness as we can see in the game from some of the penalties on this one. But ultimately, the Spitfires, who got themselves off and running last week, and you can see here as well, the Huskies with 51 shots. But only managing to score twice. A pretty decent night between the pipes for Rory McGibbon. Dylan Phillips with making 22 saves in the end on this one. And Milton Keynes, well, they're still to get their first win in South 2. It's been to be fair, they had a pretty tough start, having to play Guildford twice in the opening couple of weeks. But they're still yet to get themselves into the winning column as they lose at the Oxpens by 5-3 against the Oxford Rising Stars. MK were 2-1 up at one stage, but it's a little bit of that experience telling here in the end as the Rising Stars do the business in this one. And a name, of course, that you might notice as we if you notice going down there. It's not the same. It's not the same banner. Different Tom Banner. Just somebody with the same name, as far as I'm aware. But a 4-goal night from Matt Lorday, helping the Stars to the victory here, as well as a goal from Danny Williams. Goals for the Thunder in this one coming from Josh Hickman and 2 from Marks Canis. Maximum weekend for the Mustangs, winning at home against the Junior Devils and then winning on the road, the other side, one of the worst, probably the worst bit of travel they'll have to do, going all the way around the M25 and over down the M4 to Bristol. But the Mustangs get their 7-4 win, another win on the board for them in League and Cup. In what was a pretty decent game between themselves and the Pitbulls too, but one which the Mustangs had over 50 shots and ultimately got their result. In the end, goals for the Pitbulls too, coming from Ollie Schoen, Joe Malfatti, and 2 from Joe Cacavale. There we go. Have to say that one a bit slower. Goals for the Mustangs, 2 from James Laming, and goals from Ed Gibson, Luke Thurkettle, Joe Bliss, Ed Stedman, and Gregor McCallum. Next weekend then in South 2, if the ice holds, Solent Junior Devils versus Bristol Pitbulls 2 is most likely where you will find me next weekend. Chelmsford Warriors versus Peterborough Phantoms 2, and Huskies versus Phoenix at Ali Pali should be a good one. Always an intense game, that one. Eddie Joseph Memorial Cup action on Sunday at the Oxpens between the Rising Stars and the Invicta Mustangs, as well as a face-off time to be TBC in the Eddie Joseph between Lee Valley and Peterborough. MK take on Slough at the Thunderdome on Sunday at 6:30. A big chance for MK to get their first win of the season, but this is against a Spitfire side that has proven already that you cannot count them out. They gave the Huskies a bloody nose before taking them back to Slough and beating them, but can the Spitfires win on the road in the Thunderdome? We will find out. We will find out next weekend. Right, a breath, a pause, because we're behind, because I talked for too long at the beginning and we've got all the women's results to go through as well. Oh. Deep breath. 200 in the building. That's pretty good. That's pretty good for a brand new team in Div 2. I think getting 200 in that rink is a pretty good result. What's the ticket price, Steve? Was it like £8? We did talk about this last week. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it was like £8 or something. Was it 10? But either way, yeah, Ruhr is amazing. Great team performance. It has to beat the Huskies. You know, for the jokes that you can make about the Huskies sort of blowing things in big moments, it's quite hard to know what to do on that front. I do apologise, everybody. I think my dad's had a just had a missed call from my dad. He's had a bit of a fat-handed moment there by the look of it, but everything should hopefully be all right. But yeah, so yeah, 200 in the building. Great start for the Spitfires. But in the Huskies, like I say, unfortunately, they just seem to struggle when they get right to the very edge and then kind of fall down. But you know, the one thing that the Huskies are not going to be wanting to do, and that's going to want to drop 2 games in a row, will be a very, very tough game for Guildford this coming weekend for certain. Right, we will hit the button and then press there, because we need to have a look at the WNIHL. And after their first home game being written off because of the ice issues at Hobbsmet Road, the Solihull Vixens, the league champions, back in action. And this one, well, the thing you have to remember, Whitley Bay live stream their games, their home games on YouTube. And if you tuned in for this one, you were treated to a bit of a cracker. The Beacons beat the Vixens, and the champs start with a loss, meaning if we have a look at the WNIHL Elite League, it is the Beacons, up and away. Obviously, they have played double the amount of games of everybody else, but they are very much in the prime position. £10 for adults, 2 kids, jet season ticket holders free for the Spitfires. Thank you very much there, Steve. But yeah, there's Andrew's stuck them in the chat there. Abby Coleshaw, Ruby Newlands and Casey Trail with the goals for the Beacons. 2 goals from Jodie Alderson-Smith for the Vixens in this one. Not an ideal start, although again, it could be worse. They could be Bristol. I'll have a look at the results elsewhere from last weekend. We, of course, have nappies from our friends at England Ice Hockey. Nothing in 1 North this weekend. A good, but 2 very comfortable home wins in 1 South. The Cambridge Kodiaks put Streatham Storm 2 to the sword. 6 goals to 1 there for the Bears. And a shutout win for the Swindon Top Cats. They beat the MK Falcons by 7 goals to 0 at the Link Centre. In North 2, pretty busy in North 2, all things considered. A tight affair in the Yorkshire versus Lancashire battle, but Sheffield Shadows 2 beat the Blackburn Hawks by 2 goals to 1. Less close over in Telford. The Wrekin Raiders shut out at home 5-0 by the Leeds Roses, and Kingston Diamonds 2 also shut out at home by Whitley Bay Beacons 2. The North East taking the 2-0 win over the Humberside side. South 2 Valerie then, a 2-all tie at Ali Pally for the Greyhounds against the Cardiff Comets. Solent Amazons and the Oxford Midnight Stars, of course, postponed due to the ice issues in Gosport this weekend. And then just a quick squiz at the under-16s as they're part of the WNIHL structure. 2 games in the North. D-side get a 2-0 win away at the Storm Shelter against Manchester. Less tight game up in the North East. Hillheads treated to the Sesame Street action there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 win for the Beacons against the Nottingham Vipers. And then a real rarity, because of course you still get ties in the WNIHL. London and Haringey 0, Ice Bees 0. A pretty crazy one there. A big thanks there to Andrew, who's sticking a bit more detail into the chat there. Those, as you can see, they're a big win for the Cambridge Kodiaks. Viv McGee, Alicia Anderson with 2, Christina Ashley, Scarlett Shelton and Chloe Carter on the board for the Kodiaks, Petra Kajegi with the lone goal for the Storm, and the Lillian Ducott, Mila Peroni, Miley Drosley, Joy Scott Russell, Ellie Wallace and Amelia Williams. Endicott with 2 goals in that one as the Top Cats do the business in 1 South. We open the door. What I'm just going to do... apologies, because I think we are just very quickly, just because my dad has rung a lot of times. So just bear with me 2 seconds. There we go. Thank you for dealing with that there, folks. Apologies for the brief interruption, but like I say, just the when my dad's health's not the best and I suddenly look at my phone, I've got a bunch of missed calls, just double checking that everything was all right there for a second. We will sort him out momentarily. Andrew has put the WNIHL fixtures in the chat, which is awesome. Saturday in the Elite League, Queen Bees versus Whitley Bay Beacons. This is their big sort of family night that they're doing. I'll put Andrew has sent me the graphic, which I will tweet out tomorrow. So thank you for that, Andrew. That's at 6:30 p.m. over in Slough on Saturday evening. Sunday, Streatham versus Solihull on the High Road at 4:30. 4:30. Guildford versus Whitley Bay over in Guildford on Sunday. 1 South on Sunday, Streatham versus Swindon, and in 1 North, Nottingham versus Sheffield. Nottingham 3-1 to the good in the House of Steel against the Sheffield Steelers. We'll just double check the goals there. Nolan Volcan and David Noel with the goals to put the Panthers in front. That is in the third period. That goal from Noel coming in the third. Mike, thank you very, very much. That is greatly appreciated. Either way, we have looked through every result for every team across all the male and female divisions from the last weekend. The door is open. Questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, stick everything in the chat and let us know what you're doing and how you're feeling. Anything you want to talk about? The NHL is back, of course. Chicago off to wins. You can mention the Major League Baseball players if you want, because look, Toronto are giving everyone a heart attack again. Lots of stuff going on, of course. You know, the DL is back. Great game for the Top Cats on Sunday. MK could have got 2 or 3, but Marley Easton, of course, doing the business between the pipes for the Top Cats. Unsure when I'm going to get to a women's game at the moment, just because, of course, commentary does take over things. But I do have spare weekends. It should be said, like this one, in fact. Just obviously not working out where my Saturday is free and not my Sunday, so I can't get across to Swindon for the Bison game. Albeit, it's not a home game, is it? So that is where that is. Let's just also quickly just double check if there's been any news. Nothing in the immediacy. One thing that was missing there on... so one thing I think that was... Let me just double check that actually. Was that on the list? No, it is. We did mention that. We did mention Cardiff and Chelmsford. Had a panic attack there. Just all the graphics come up. I was like, did I mention this? And I definitely did. No other big news that we can see in the immediacy that I can see. All looks good at the mo. Solent has a decent women's team worth a watch. It's going to be a bit of a moot point at the moment, Dave, if the host doesn't really kind of get anywhere. But no, they do. I do know, of course, Hannah Driver, long-time Basingstoke player, will obviously be looking to kind of bring women's hockey back to Basingstoke, is my understanding, for too long. NHL back tonight, listening to the JB preview for the Caps earlier. I've not had a chance to do that, Jamie, just because of work and getting stuff ready for this, but we'll definitely be checking that out later. But no, Dave, yeah, I know Jonathan Banner, who's the team manager now, dad of Jess Banner, dad of Tom Banner as well, who played for the Solent Devils until sort of stepping away recently. But yeah, I want to try and get down to an Amazons or a Valkyries game just to kind of show a bit of local support. It's just timing, man. It's just finding the time. The one thing we do have, and the one thing that is being planned in the works now, I'm going to get things sorted out next week, just because we booked the family holiday this week, so I'm sorting out my hockey bits and pieces next week. End of January, I'm going to Belfast for a weekend. The Flames are away in Scotland. So I am taking the opportunity to do 2 things. Actually 3 things. One, my mum's mum is originally from Lisbon in County Antrim, but I've never really done Belfast. I've only gone across to Northern Ireland when my great uncle died and we had to go over and scatter his ashes. So I want to go and be a tourist in Belfast. You can fly directly from Southampton, which makes life quite easy. Belfast are playing Coventry, so 2 sides I've got friends on both sides of that equation, so I can kind of just go and enjoy myself. And then the Saturday, I think I'm going to take myself off to some Northern Irish football. One of these things I decided I wanted to do was attend a game in the Football League of all of the representative, all the sort of the nations of the UK, as it were. Now, admittedly, Ireland, Yeah, I know. But I've been to a game in the Republic. I haven't been to, but I've been to a game in Scotland. I've obviously been to games in England, but I've not been to a game in Wales. That we all know what happened the last time I tried to go to a game in Wales. But I've not had the opportunity to go to Northern Ireland, so I was going to try and go to the hockey on the Saturday, go to the football. So go to the hockey on the Friday, go to the football on the Saturday, and then fly home on the Monday was the plan. So I think that's what we're going to do. Paul Gosport, I feel sorry for any venue that starts with Planet Ice. You know what? It's not. I don't. They could do a lot worse there, all things considered. It could be a lot worse, I think. I'll tell you what I did actually last weekend, because obviously I commentated on Saturday, so I had a Sunday free. I sat down with a cup of tea on Sunday and just watched the DEL on German telly, because you can generally get one game every so often on one of the free to air channels. So I just sat and watched Straubing versus Nuremberg. It was really nice to just chill out and watch a game of hockey on a Saturday afternoon. But yeah, so it's just amazing, isn't it? What happens when people just put stuff on for free and give access to bits and pieces and make life easy for people. The Elite League should put the elimination game on YouTube for free. The Challenge Cup Eliminator. If they don't want to put the final on YouTube for free, I can kind of get it. But put the Eliminator game on YouTube for free to show everyone. I think it would go really well. Anything else anybody wants? Because obviously we've hit the 9:30 mark, and this is what happens when I have two big things to talk about on the show. But yeah, plenty going on. Like I say, just an off weekend for me. No commentary for me until a week on Saturday, which is the 18th for Flames versus Storm. Kyle Locke returning to Guildford. That'll be very interesting. I do miss watching British hockey on Channel 4 like they did in the 90s. Well, yeah, and Grandstand and stuff as well, you know. Channel 4 I always associate with British basketball, because when I was little and my parents were still together, we used to go watch the basketball in Kingston quite a lot, because I grew up in southwest London. So I watched a lot of the Kingston Kings, basketball wise, and so there was, it was like the British sort of Cup finals on from the Royal Albert Hall on a Sunday on Channel 4, and like I've watched the videos like time and time again, like Kingston versus Portsmouth, Kingston versus the Manchester Giants, and bits and pieces like that. Is it good to have midweek fixtures at the end of the month in the National League? Be fun for you streaming that week. Yeah, we well, to be fair, the 29th of October, which is a Wednesday, Flames are at home. So that's going to be a Friday one, Jamie, all things considered. We will be alerting people as a result. I'm just trying to remember who Guildford have that day. Game Centre. Wednesday, the 29th. Sheffield. So it's Guildford versus Sheffield on a Wednesday night, which should be a ton of fun, especially as well because the weekend before. So Guildford have got the 25th. They've got Sheffield away. The 26th they have Belfast at home. The 29th they have Sheffield at home, and then I believe to start November, I think they're at home on the Sunday actually in November. Actually, no, they are off. They are off the first. They're off the first and the, or are they in the Challenge Cup? They might have a Challenge Cup game. Because the Challenge Cup always throws me for a slight loop. No, they're actually off that entire weekend. No, not many tickets left for the Flames game on the 18th. There are not, because it's kids go free, so you need to get those early. That's why there's not many left on that one, Mark. Happy about then, watching MK versus Basingstoke on the 29th. Yeah, you best. Here's the thing, and I'll let you all in on this little secret. Because this laptop that I do this comes with me, because I have bits of paper in my hand, but I also have like my spreadsheet with all the bits of information, so I can pull bits out. I have the live stats on the thing. If it's a Saturday or a Sunday, I have the National Division scores up, because ultimately, if there's not much going on in the Elite League, but something crazy is happening in the National, I'll 100% mention it. Like I say, I mentioned Bradford and Sutton on the stream on on Saturday, because why wouldn't you mention a game that's finished 10-9? It doesn't matter. It's in a different league. That's bonkers. But yes, if folk are coming on the Mark, if you're coming on the 18th, I'm quite easy to find. So come and say hello. Sheffield vs Solly on the Friday was that week. Yeah, I mean the Friday nights I kind of get. I appreciate that midweek feels tough for teams like that, but you got to take advantage of the school holidays to get kids through the door. I think Tuesday night, Wednesday night during a half term, the opportunity is there to do stuff with. I appreciate it's easier in the Elite League, but like I know a lot of players have said about the Elite League, it should do what a lot of European leagues have done and go to a Friday Sunday rather than Saturday Sunday. But it is what it is. Yes, I know. Yes, you know. I will be very easy to find. And to be fair, you're tall enough where you will probably be able to reach up, and won't need the ladder. But yeah, this laptop kind of comes with me. But I have the National League Game Centre open every time I'm commentating. Why are Solway sinking? I mean, not being able to train at home, not play at home. That's quite tough. I think that's quite hard. But yeah, I think it's a bit of a. For Solway, like I say, it's just the toughness of a new side, of a new roster trying to blend together. A lot of different elements into it as well this year. Not being able to train at home, not being able to play at home. That does make it hard, you know. I think that is a tough one. So I think, you know, that is what it is on that front. But yeah, all four away to start is not well. Like I say though, but the issue for Solway is that the rink's being refurbed. Dumfries Ice Bowl's been. I can't remember when they closed it, but I think it was like July, and they've been working on doing a few bits of refurb work to it since that point. It's a council-owned venue, so they're always gonna, you know, and for what, you know, Dumfries Council take it very, very seriously. It should also be noted that one of the managers is a certain Mr. Struan Tonner, but yeah, you know, there's a lot going on there. They will get there, and as Mark has said in the chat, so we're going to get better as time goes on. Right, last call. Absolute last call, because I'm going to get out of here because we're already at the 9:30 mark for bits and pieces. Next week, back on Wednesday. No issues on that one. Like I said, the 29th is going to move, and we'll go to we'll move to the Friday. So Friday the Friday the 31st. Either way, the week of half term, Friday. I will remind people of the bits and pieces. Let's click that button, because that button will actually tell me the date. Yeah, Friday the 31st, Halloween. Sponsor a Solway Ice Cube. I still can't believe they don't sponsor a shark somewhere at like a Sea Life Centre myself. Being based so fingers crossed for November 1st. Can't see Planet Ice letting the rink be ready for that game. Again, I have no idea, Jamie. They just aren't communicating in a really effective way with people, so it's impossible to say. But yeah, like I say, it's, you know, there's plenty going on. Hopefully, because like I said, in terms of games I'm able to really make, it's a bit of a tough one this weekend. It's sort of Swindon against Sheffield, or Solent versus Bristol, Solent Juniors versus Bristol 2, and it just you know, it felt like it was a good one, maybe to just, like I said, just try and take my son to 40 minutes, 45 minutes there, 40 minutes back. Just a nice easy one, really. So hopefully it goes ahead. Telford Tigers Wheelie Crew do sponsor a real tiger. Oh, that's fun. I didn't realise that. I didn't realise you did that. Right though, folks, I think, given the time and given the fact, like I said, that my phone appears to be ringing a little bit, we need to call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things British hockey. Keep up with my ramblings via In the Box Thinking, and maybe, like I say, you'll even get Banners on the Road this week, until the day we finally get Running with the Herd back. But that day is getting closer and closer. Hopefully everything, though, is good for... Hopefully, like I say, you can keep up with bits and pieces there. My views from high atop the spectrum, a unique insight from life in the commentary box, as well as our Hockey Story series, long-form, in-depth pieces of content that cover the spectrum of everything from across hockey players, history, coaches, the movers and the shakers of world hockey. We have covered absolutely anything and everything in hockey stories, and that will never change. 14 and a half years worth of content to check out over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. We are on Facebook, we are on X, we are on Blue Sky, and you can get all of the links down there in the description, as well as the link to our virtual busking hat at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. Never going behind the paywall, but it is just a case of it costs money to do things, and if you like what you see, if you enjoy what you get, and you want to help keep the lights on and the wheels spinning, then just chuck us a few quid over at buymeacoffee.com/BOTW. And if you don't have the money, that's absolutely fine. Just take them, just like I say, share stuff out, because we're fighting the algorithms a little bit. Keep the algorithm hamster happy, fat, and fed. And then also as well, the usual YouTube spiel. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There's so much stuff over on the YouTube channel. And of course, when all goes awry, you can then come back here on a Wednesday night at 8 p.m. and we will chat through every single game and all the big bits of action that have happened across British hockey for the week in the BOTW What's Current stream. Thanks as well for putting up with the fact I just needed to pause just to check on what's going on with my dad. I'm going to go give him a ring, I think is the biggest thing there. It doesn't matter what the papers say, doesn't matter about the TV news. We know who we are. And British hockey has its foibles, but it's still brilliant, I think. And I think the biggest way that we can show people just how brilliant it is we carry on regardless. We welcome people in, we give them their space, however they found us, and we're going to have some fun this weekend. Be happy, and if you can't be happy, then wherever you are, I pray that you will stay safe. As my friend Scotty Was would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long till next time. Have a good hockey weekend wherever you find it. I will see you along the way, and if I don't see you before, I will see you back here next Wednesday night for the BOTW What's Current stream. Take care, everyone, and thanks for the kind words about my dad.